Hello, I'm Josh Franaka, and this is my presentation on Jacques-Louis David. Uh, the biographical timeline. He was born to a very well-off, rich French family on August 30th, 1748. Sadly, his father actually died in a duel, and his mother, not wanting to take care of him by herself, sent him off to live with his rich architect uncles. A very well-off family, even extended family. They sent him to very well-off, solid schools, but at those schools, he would doodle. He was not a very good student. He really wanted to be a painter throughout all of his schooling, but his family was pushing him to be an architect. Eventually, his talent was noticed, and he came to tutor under the Rococo artist Boucher, who's pictured in the very bottom left. Um, Boucher recognized his talent and actually sent him or recommended him to a friend, Joseph Marie Vienne, and David went to study under him while also attending the Royal Academy of Art. It was there that David continually pursued the Prix de Rome, a scholarship program that essentially sent the winner to Rome, to Italy, on a full scholarship. And it took him 4 attempts. He finally won on his fourth attempt, with Erostratus discovering the case of Antioch's disease. Very good painting. Um, he took his trip to Pompeii, where he was deeply, deeply inspired by Raphael. This is where his neoclassical roots, you could say, are traced back to. And as the years went by and he returned to France, and the revolution and the revolutionary ideas started to build, David aligned himself with the revolutionaries. He was a good friend of Robespierre, and he was actually a member of the Jacobin Club. Uh, Again, he was highly involved in the revolution, and his support for the regicide actually got him divorced. His wife divorced him because of that. She was a staunch royalist. Um, and he was a high up member in the actual revolutionary government. He was the organizer of festivals. So the festival of the Supreme Being was actually organized by David. Um, and ironically, after the fall of the new French Republic, he was the court painter for Napoleon and his regime. And on to David's actual works. Here we have The Death of Socrates, one of his most well-known paintings. Um, it's a neoclassical piece from 1787 and is painted with oil on canvas. Um, and under my observations of the painting, first you'll notice the idealized Socrates. He's very muscular. He's ripped. I mean, he is looking pretty good for an old guy. Too good. Uh, Again, this is that neoclassical musculature, the perfect ideal man. Um, and you'll notice he has an interesting pointing up gesture. We'll get back to that. Should look a little familiar. And what's the scene is just bathed in light, or Socrates is bathed in light. As you can see, there's the shadow um, as well right here. Uh, there is a muted color around the edges of the scene, but when you get into the center, he's just again bathed in light. Uh, Painting him as the focal point, painting the center of the painting, really putting it into uh, the forefront. And you have a bit of an interesting interplay between the characters, or between the people and their stance. So, like Socrates, even though he's headed towards his death, he's very rigid and principled, and you can see that in his like angular geometry. Whereas the very almost mannerist looking, emotional, passionate, uh, or not angular, curved lines of the onlookers uh, exemplify the emotion that they're feeling at his death. And again, that juxtaposition really puts into perspective Socrates' ideals and his acceptance of his death, if you know the context of the painting. And more into the onlookers, there is 12, which is not historically accurate to his actual death. Um, this is most likely an allusion to Jesus' 12 disciples in that sort of follower way, and this idolization of Socrates. And another piece about that is uh, this man right here, gripping onto him, looking up towards him, idolizing him. Jacques Louis David actually signed. You can't really see it here without the zoom in, but he actually signed this painting twice, here and here. Um, Now this probably serves to demonstrate Jacques' like intense, revolutionary, like moral idealism that he held, obviously as a member of the French Revolution and its uh, following government. And another interesting part about this painting, as that sort of neoclassical, uh, looking to emulate friezes, it has that side to side readable nature, where you could read it from right to left or left to right. The right to left first are stricken by the emotion of these onlookers, and then you're uh, kind of swayed by Socrates' acceptance and his idealism and his morality, his acceptance of death. He welcomes the afterlife. He gestures towards the sky and accepts his fate. Um, and then again, it flows into the cup, and the cup of death, the hemlock, brings you back into the emotion, and then down into what seems to be Plato. And that's really important in the left to right reading. Um, you see him very old, whereas at the actual time of this event, Plato would be much younger. Um, so, what I like to think is that this entire scene is a dream or a memory of Plato, thinking back on it, and that would explain the idealized form, um, this gesture, which is the same gesture Plato makes in Raphael's School of Athens. So that those two things seem to be very interconnected, and I personally think that would be very cool if that's what David was going with. And it seems to just everything comes out from the head of Plato. So I feel like that is a very interesting interpretation, and that is how I choose to interpret the painting. Um, and finally, uh, going to conclude our presentation about Jacques-Louis David, the quintessential neoclassicist. There's another painting of his, The Oath of the Horatii, which is hailed as one of the first and foremost kind of neoclassical paintings. Um, and the other thing is actually an album cover using the death of Marat. And this is actually one of my favorite albums. And it tackles, obviously, considering the name, uh, this weird acceptance of death and some interesting themes which tie into the death of Marat and his martyrdom and the not necessarily the glorification, but the acceptance of death as a natural part of life, and not to be scorned or feared, but possibly celebrated. And I think the fact that his works and the feelings that his works imbue have lasted until now and persisted are a testament to how good of a painter and how truly he exemplified the ideals of the neoclassical movement. Uh, and that's it. Sorry if it was a little wordy and rambling, but I very much enjoy Jacques-Louis David and his works, and he was a very interesting person. But thank you very much. I'll see you later.